Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Total Biscuit of the WoW podcast, Blue Please on CynicalBrit.com. I'm going to give you a look at the updated Eastern Plaguelands. Upon visiting this, I think I got the plague, and I'm a little bit stuffed up, so my apologies for that. Now, this zone hasn't had as many changes as some of the others, so what I've done here is I've applied some pretty heavy editing to show you only the bits which have been significantly altered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a brief video of each one, and I'm going to highlight on the map where exactly I'm looking at the time, so you can have a little bit of context there. I think that's a better way of showing this zone, because it is very large, and there's a little point in flying over stuff that you've already seen before. The first thing to note is that this zone has been retuned. It is now designed for level 40 to 45 characters. Now, the first thing we're going to have a look at is Light's Hope Chapel, and the new bridge that leads us to there over the now flooded Pestilent Scar. Light's Hope Chapel in general is the area of this particular zone that has been changed the most. It's become a fully fortified town now. They're still building some of the fortifications, but as you can see, you've got the bridge over here. A number of these scarred areas have been flooded with water as a result of the Cataclysm, so they've had to build bridges there. All the bridges look the same. You note the fortifications there. You'll also note these are guarded by level 70 elites with 128,000 health. I would not recommend attacking Alliance players here, but there you go. Ah yes, the Ashbringer. Fantastic stuff. You'll note, unlike the Western Plaguelands, where most of this nonsense has been cleansed, the Eastern Plaguelands are still very much in the hands of the undead. This is one of the few clean and green areas that you'll find here. And someone seems very upset about that fact. Argent Dawn is still here in force, as you might imagine. Most of the guys who were here about the whole Naxxramas thing, they're all gone. That's been cleaned out. Although there is still a craftsman here, wearing that old terrible frost resistance gear. But it doesn't seem to give anything anymore. I'm glad to see that good old Bartholomew still remains among the land of the living. Well, I suppose that wouldn't be all that accurate, would it? Now, I did wonder if there was anything cool in this tomb, but sadly no. Nothing whatsoever. Just your average run-of-the-mill tomb. Overall, they've done a pretty good job on the home improvement side of things over here. Well done to the Argent Dawn. Shame the rest of it's still a bit of a mess. Okay, second area. This area was here before. Yes, indeed, that is the Ebonhold Acarus, and this is now accessible to everybody. You can fly up here. All of the NPCs are friendly, but there doesn't seem to be any purpose to flying up there if you're not a Death Knight. Nonetheless, we're going to have a quick look at it anyway. Firstly, here it is from the bottom, doing its old Independence Day impression. You've also got a couple of flying chickens around. The Ebonhold Guards. And now if I take you inside... Mograin's still chilling. And I do mean quite literally. Otherwise, there doesn't seem to be all that many changes, honestly. I talked to a couple of the NPCs. They don't say anything different, but obviously they don't offer you any training or anything like that, and the quests are unavailable for non-Death Knights. Since I barely played a Death Knight, it's kind of nice to come in here anyway. I did level 1, and I couldn't be bothered with it. I don't know what it is. That class just isn't appealing to me. Now, one thing you have to know is that I got in this way, but you can't actually get out this way. There's an invisible flight ceiling there, which means you can't quite get over the barrier. Little bit annoying, to say the least. The only way you can get out is if you go onto the second level. There's a place with a flight master. You can use that to get out of there, or just get on your flying mount. Right, next area. You'll remember this tower. It used to be one of the capturable world PvP locations in this area. All of these towers are now owned by the Argent Dawn, which means that they have been changed, refortified, and they're one of the only areas in the Eastern Plaguelands that have actual green grass. You actually do still get the 5% undead damage buff, so don't stress too much about that. But let's have a look at this one. This one's a little bit unusual because it's got this big beam flying into the sky for whatever reason. It also has a delicious barbecue pit. Yes, indeed. Let's go and have a quick look at that. What you'll also note is that every one of these towers now has a neutral flight master, which means getting across this zone is a lot easier than it used to be. Anyone fancy a little bit of well-done abomination? Delicious. The next area we're going to have a look at is the Calithian Lodge up to the north. Now, this area used to be populated by Highborn, but as a result, I believe, of the Sunwell nonsense that went on during TBC, there was a bunch more wretched created, and apparently these guys have succumbed to mana addiction, and they're looking a little bit worse for wear. Now, this should teach you a very valuable lesson for life. Don't do Void Crystals, kids, or Arcane Powder. You'll end up looking like this. Ugh. Disgusting. And I thought elves were bad in their normal form. Certainly going to be looking forward to slaying these wretched creatures. They've got nothing to live for anyway. Hell, some of them are just lying around. Lazy buggers. Our next stop on this tour is Corrin's Crossing, which hasn't changed all that much. You'll remember it as the Scourge-infested town that was not all that pleasant to ride through. This one has a new tower established by the Argent Dawn. It's in the north right there. We're going to have a look at that. As with a lot of these areas, they have been now flooded, so there are a number of these bridges around. They are guarded, like I said, by very, very powerful mobs, considering the level zone of this area. So I wouldn't piss them off, if I were you. The town's just as ramshackle as it always was. It turns out the Argent Dawn doesn't have the manpower to really take this back, but they have been able to establish this watchtower right here, and I imagine this will be the staging point for a future assault at some point. Neutral vendors in here, and as with all of the towers in this area, there are neutral flight points, so that's 5 in total, plus the other ones that were already here to begin with. And last but by no means least, one of my favourite dungeons of all time, which I believe has been retuned to be the same kind of level as this area, just like Scholarman's has in the Western Plaguelands. It is Stratholme. Now, I would love to fly over this, but I can't. There's an invisible wall. I can show some parts to you from the air, so I'm going to do that right now. There we go. It's a rather unique perspective on that particular area. I'd still love to know what that bloody green gate was. You remember that? The green instance portal at the back there? It was supposed to be a way into Naxxramas, but that never happened, as far as I'm aware. It's a mystery. See how close we can actually get. Sadly, not as close as I would like. Well, that place has been burning for 6 years. You'd have thought it would have burnt out by now or something. And that about covers it, ladies and gents. Those are the major changes to the Eastern Plaguelands. The rest of it's pretty much the same as it always was. If you want any more information on this, the best place to have a look is WoW Wiki. They've got a full list of everything that's been altered. I've covered everything that's worth looking at. My name's been Total Biscuit, and I will see you next time.